The cafeteria was full that afternoon, trays clattering, students laughing, and the smell of fried food filling the air. At one corner, Mr. Harris, the school's quiet janitor, was mopping up a spill near the drink machines. He wore the same faded blue uniform he always did, his back slightly bent from years of work, his face calm and unreadable. Most students barely noticed him, just stepping aside so he could clean. But at one table in the center, a group of loud boys was talking about the upcoming martial arts competition. At the head of the table sat Ethan, the black belt champion of the school, known for his speed, power, and big ego. He was telling stories about his victories, adding little details to make himself sound even more impressive. Some students listened in awe, while others rolled their eyes but stayed quiet. Then, Ethan's eyes fell on Mr. Harris, slowly wiping the floor nearby. A smirk appeared on his face, and he nudged his friend. "Hey, watch this." He whispered. "Hey, old man," Ethan called out loudly, making sure everyone could hear. The cafeteria went a little quieter, curious about what was about to happen. Mr. Harris looked up slowly, his eyes calm. "Yes," he asked in a soft voice. "You ever do anything besides mop floors?" Ethan said, leaning back with a mocking grin. Some of the boys laughed. Others waited to see where this was going. "I do my job," Mr. Harris replied simply, turning back to his work. That answer only seemed to encourage Ethan. "You know, I'm a black belt," Ethan continued, standing up now, his voice carrying across the room. "I could take anyone in this school. Maybe even you." The laughter grew louder. A few students started pulling out their phones to record. Mr. Harris paused, his mop still in his hand. He didn't seem angry, only thoughtful. "That's not necessary," he said calmly. "Oh, come on," Ethan smirked. "It'll be fun." "Just a friendly match. I don't fight for fun," Mr. Harris replied. "Then maybe you're scared," Ethan said, his tone dripping with challenge. That word "scared" was like a spark. In dry grass, the whole cafeteria reacted, gasps, whispers, and a few cheers. Ethan spread his arms, playing to the crowd. "See? Even the janitor knows better than to face me." He laughed, but instead of looking embarrassed, Mr. Harris just stared at him for a moment. Then he set his mop against the wall and walked toward Ethan. His steps were slow, but there was something in the way he moved, steady, controlled. The room went silent. Mr. Harris stopped just a few feet away. "You think strength is about beating someone?" he asked quietly. Ethan tilted his head, smirking. Of course, Mr. Harris shook his head. "Then you don't know strength at all." A few students murmured, unsure what he meant. Ethan laughed again. But it sounded less confident this time. "I'll make it simple for you, old man," Ethan said. "After school, in the gym. Let's see what you've got." Mr. Harris looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "If you insist," he said, and walked away. The cafeteria exploded with noise, laughter, shouts, and whispers about what was going to happen. After school, phones buzzed as messages flew around the building. By the time lunch ended, the entire school seemed to know Ethan would be fighting the janitor, and no one could guess how it would end. By the last bell of the day, the school was buzzing like a hive. Every hallway had whispers about the fight. Some students claimed Mr. Harris used to be a street fighter. Others said he was probably going to get knocked out in seconds. Ethan walked through the corridors with his usual swagger, smiling as people patted his back. He loved the attention. To him, this wasn't just a fight, it was a chance to show he was untouchable. Mr. Harris, on the other hand, moved through the halls quietly, carrying his bucket and cleaning supplies like it was any other day. When a few students asked him if the fight was really happening, he only said, "We'll see," and kept walking. This calmness made some people nervous. Though they couldn't explain why, the gym was already filling up before the final class even ended. Students claimed the best spots on the bleachers. Phones were ready, cameras open, ready to catch the first punch. Even a few teachers showed up, though they stood at the back, pretending they were there to keep things under control. In truth, they were just as curious as the students. Ethan arrived early, dressed in his black martial arts uniform. The belt tied neatly around his waist. He stretched through a few practice kicks and grinned at the oohs and ahs from the crowd. He imagined how easily he would make Mr. Harris look foolish. To him, this was already won. But then the double doors opened. Mr. Harris walked in, still wearing his work pants and plain t-shirt. He had removed his cleaning gloves, but kept the same calm expression. He carried no gear, no protective pads, nothing. It was almost insulting, like he didn't even think Ethan was a real challenge. The whispers grew louder. "Is he serious?" Someone muttered, "He's gonna get wrecked," another said. Yet a few students watched him carefully, noticing the way he carried himself. His shoulders were relaxed, his steps measured, almost like a trained fighter. Ethan stepped forward. Grinning, "You made it," he said. "Loud enough for everyone to hear. I told you I would." Mr. Harris replied in a quiet voice. The contrast between Ethan's loud confidence and Mr. Harris's soft tone made the crowd lean in. Ethan motioned to the center of the gym. "Let's give them a show." The principal wasn't there, and that only made the students bolder. They began chanting, "Fight, fight, fight," until the sound bounced off the walls. Mr. Harris sighed, stepped into the center, and stood with his hands loose at his sides. No stance, no guard, just standing. Ethan smirked. "You're not even going to defend yourself?" "I'll defend myself when I need to," Mr. Harris answered. The crowd laughed at the answer. But a few people noticed something strange. His eyes never left Ethan's. As the two faced each other, the atmosphere shifted, the laughter died down, replaced by an odd sense of anticipation. Even those who thought Mr. Harris would lose quickly couldn't deny there was something different about him. Ethan bounced on his feet, testing his range. He threw a quick jab, not at full speed. Just to measure the distance, Mr. Harris didn't even flinch. It was as if he saw it coming before it happened. That unsettled Ethan, though he didn't show it. The gym door opened again, and more students poured in. The bleachers were nearly full now. Everyone was holding their breath for the first real move. Some kids were already streaming the event live. "All right," Ethan muttered under his breath. "Let's make this quick." He lunged forward with a sharp kick. In one smooth motion, Mr. Harris shifted his weight, stepped aside, and let the kick pass harmlessly. It looked so easy that the crowd didn't even cheer. They just gasped. Ethan pulled back, now frowning. He wasn't used to people dodging like that. Mr. Harris still hadn't raised his hands. "Are you going to try?" Ethan demanded. "I am trying," Mr. Harris said softly. "I'm trying to show you that power isn't everything," the crowd murmured, unsure how to take those words. Ethan's pride burned. He tightened his stance and prepared to attack again. Everyone could feel it. The real fight was about to begin. The gym was so quiet now that even the sound of Ethan's breathing could be heard. He stood in his fighting stance, muscles tense, eyes locked on Mr. Harris. The older man still stood calmly, his hands loose at his sides. His shoulders relaxed, like this was nothing more than a walk in the park. Ethan's pride wouldn't let him hold back anymore. He decided it was time to end this quickly. With a sudden burst of speed, Ethan launched forward, his fist slicing through the air toward Mr. Harris's jaw. The crowd leaned forward, ready for the blow to land. But at the very last moment, Mr. Harris tilted his head slightly, letting the punch miss him by inches. He didn't step back, didn't block, didn't even raise his hands. It was as if he knew exactly where Ethan's punch would be before Ethan even threw it. Ethan pulled back, eyes narrowing. He tried again, this time with a low kick aimed at Mr. Harris's leg. Once again. The janitor shifted just enough to let the kick pass without contact. It wasn't flashy, but it was perfect. So perfect it made Ethan's movements look clumsy. Some students gasped. Others laughed nervously. This guy's not normal. Someone whispered. Ethan gritted his teeth. No one had ever made him miss twice in a row. Not in competitions, not in training. Not even when sparring with other black belts. Now this janitor, this man who spent his days mopping floors, was avoiding his attacks like they were nothing. Stop dodging and fight. Ethan barked. Mr. Harris's voice was calm as ever. Why should I fight when you're already losing? The words stung, and the crowd reacted with a mix of shock and laughter. Ethan's pride flared. He attacked again, this time unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks, moving faster than before. To the untrained eye, it looked like chaos too. Mr. Harris, it was slow, predictable. He moved just enough to avoid each strike, his feet sliding over the gym floor like water flowing around rocks. Then, without warning, Ethan made a mistake. He overextended his final punch, his weight falling forward. In that split second, Mr. Harris's body shifted. His hand shot out, catching Ethan's wrist. With a simple twist and a gentle push, Ethan's momentum carried him forward, straight to the floor. The sound of his body hitting the mat echoed through the gym. The crowd erupted, half in disbelief, half in excitement. Ethan scrambled too. His feet, his face red, his breathing heavy. That was just luck, he muttered. But even he didn't sound convinced. Mr. Harris stepped back, giving him space. Luck? He asked quietly. You attacked without control. And control is everything. The words hung in the air. Ethan lunged again. But this time, Mr. Harris blocked the strike with one hand. Then tapped Ethan's shoulder in a move so fast most people didn't even see it. Ethan stumbled backward. Shocked, Mr. Harris didn't chase him, didn't press the attack. He just stood there, calm, like a teacher waiting for his student to understand the lesson. The students in the bleachers were whispering now. Is he a pro fighter? Where did he learn that? Ethan's actually losing. Even some teachers exchanged looks, unsure whether to stop the fight or let it continue. It wasn't brutal. Mr. Harris hadn't hurt Ethan, but the control he displayed was, making the school starfighter look like an amateur. Ethan was sweating now, his chest rising and falling quickly. His punches had power, but his pride was driving them, not his skill. Mr. Harris, on the other hand, hadn't even broken a sweat. Ethan tried one last big move, a spinning kick aimed at Mr. Harris's head. The older man ducked under it with ease, caught Ethan's leg, and guided him gently to the ground again. It was like watching a father stop a child from falling. No aggression, no anger, just perfect control. Ethan lay on the mat for a second, staring up at the ceiling. He wasn't hurt, but something in his expression had changed. The arrogance was fading, replaced with something else. Confusion, maybe even respect. Mr. Harris extended his hand for a moment. Ethan hesitated, then took it, letting the janitor help him to his feet. Do you still think strength is about showing off? Mr. Harris asked softly. Ethan didn't answer, but the silence in the gym spoke louder than words. The gym was still silent after Ethan took Mr. Harris's hand and stood up. The air felt heavy, as if everyone was afraid to breathe too loudly. Ethan, who had walked in so sure of himself, now stood with his head slightly lowered, sweat dripping down his face. Mr. Harris, on the other hand, looked calm, steady, and untouched by the fight. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Picking up his jacket from the floor, it looked like he was ready to leave. But then a voice from the crowd broke the silence. Who are you? A student shouted. The question hung in the air, and others started murmuring, Yeah, how did you do that? Where'd you learn to fight like that? Mr. Harris stopped walking, his back still to the crowd. For a moment, he didn't say anything, then, Slowly, he turned around, his eyes scanning the room. "I wasn't always a janitor," he said, in a voice that was quiet but carried across the gym. The words made the crowd lean forward. "I served in the military for many years," he continued. "I trained soldiers, taught them how to survive, how to defend themselves, and how to control their strength." There were gasps from the students, even a few from the teachers. Ethan's eyes widened. Suddenly, all of Mr. Harris's movements made sense. The way he had dodged every strike, the way he had controlled every step. It wasn't luck, it was training. One of the boys near the front spoke up. "So, you're a soldier." "I was," Mr. Harris replied, "but more than that. I was a teacher." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I've seen strong men lose everything because they thought strength was just about winning fights." His gaze shifted to Ethan. "True strength is knowing when to fight and when to walk away." The crowd was silent again. Some students shifted uncomfortably, as if they suddenly felt guilty for cheering the challenge earlier. Ethan swallowed hard. He had wanted to humiliate the janitor, but now it felt like he had been the one taught a lesson. "I didn't know," Ethan said quietly, his voice lacking the arrogance it had before. Mr. Harris gave a small nod. "Most people don't." He walked over to the mop he had left leaning against the wall. With practiced ease, he picked it up as if the fight had never happened. Students watched in stunned silence as he began cleaning a corner of the gym. It was almost unreal. A man who could have beaten Ethan badly was back to mopping the floor, like it was the most important thing in the world. And maybe, in his eyes, it was. One of the teachers, Mr. Coleman, stepped forward. "Harris." "I had no idea." Mr. Harris gave a faint smile. "I don't talk about it, sir. I just do my job." Ethan stood frozen for a moment, then slowly walked toward him. "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time all day, his voice was sincere. "I was wrong to make fun of you." Mr. Harris looked at him, his expression. "Unreadable apology accepted," he said simply, then went back to mopping. The students didn't know what to do next. Some slowly began filing out of the gym, whispering to each other. Others stayed, watching in silence as the janitor worked. But no one laughed anymore. The video clips of the fight had already started spreading online by the time school ended. People outside the building were already talking about the janitor who silenced the black belt. Ethan didn't stay to watch the crowd react. He walked out of the gym and into the empty hallway, his thoughts spinning, every move he had made in the fight had been countered without effort. Every attack had been turned against him. It wasn't about power, it was about control, and he realized he had none. That night, Ethan sat in his room, re-watching the video of the fight. He didn't feel anger or embarrassment. What he felt was curiosity. How could a man his age, working as a school janitor, still move like that? The more he thought about it, the more he wanted to learn. And in that moment, a decision began forming in his mind. The next morning, school hallways felt different. Students still whispered about the fight, but now there was a tone of respect in their voices. Some even greeted Mr. Harris as they passed, something they had never done before. He responded with his usual polite nod, carrying his mop and bucket as if nothing had changed. But for Ethan, everything had changed all night. Ethan had thought about what Mr. Harris said. True strength is knowing when to fight and when to walk away. Those words played over and over in his head. He had always believed strength was about winning, about showing the world he was better. But now, he wasn't so sure. At lunch, Ethan didn't sit with his usual group. Instead, he looked around until he spotted Mr. Harris in the corner of the cafeteria, quietly fixing a wobbly table leg. The students at nearby tables glanced at him curiously. As he walked over, "Mr. Harris," Ethan said, his voice steady but softer than usual. The janitor looked up. "Yes." I want to learn, Ethan said. Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow. Learn what? How to do. What you did yesterday, Ethan replied. Mr. Harris went back to adjusting the table. Why? Ethan hesitated. Because I realized, not as good as I thought I was. There was a pause. For a moment, Mr. Harris didn't answer. Just tightened the last bolt on the table leg. Then he stood, wiping his hands on a rag. Meet me in the gym after school, he said. Ethan nodded without hesitation. When the final bell rang, Ethan arrived early. Wearing his training clothes, he expected Mr. Harris to show up with gear. Maybe pads or gloves, but the older man walked in carrying nothing but a broom. You ready? Mr. Harris asked. Yes, Ethan said, standing in his fighting stance. Good, Mr. Harris replied. Then sweep the floor. Ethan blinked. What? Start there, Mr. Harris said, handing him the broom. Reluctantly, Ethan began sweeping. At first, he thought it was a joke. But Mr. Harris watched him closely. Control your movement, the janitor instructed. Don't rush. Keep your balance. Make every step deliberate. An hour passed, and Ethan had done nothing but sweep. His legs ached from moving in controlled steps. His back sore from keeping posture. When he finished, Mr. Harris nodded. Good. Now mop. Ethan wanted to argue, but something in Mr. Harris's tone told him not to. So he mopped the gym floor, focusing on balance and smooth movement. Only when he was done did Mr. Harris finally say, Now we begin. The training was nothing like Ethan expected. There were no flashy kicks or hard punches. Instead, Mr. Harris taught him how to breathe properly, how to shift weight without losing stability. He made Ethan walk in slow circles for 15 minutes, then change direction without looking at his feet. This is boring, Ethan muttered once. Mr. Harris gave him a sharp look. Boring wins fights. Fancy loses them. By the end of the week, Ethan was exhausted. His muscles hurt in ways they never had before. But he also noticed something. His movements were smoother, his balance stronger, his breathing more controlled, and for the first time in his martial arts journey, he understood why he had lost one afternoon as they took a short break. Ethan asked, Why did you agree to teach me? Mr. Harris took a sip of water before answering. Because you were willing to admit you didn't know everything, he said. That's the first step to becoming truly strong. The lessons continued every day after school. Other students noticed and started coming to watch. Some even asked if they could join, but Mr. Harris always shook his head. Not yet, he would say, one student at a time. It wasn't just about fighting. Mr. Harris was teaching Ethan patience, discipline, and respect. Ethan no longer walked around school showing off. When other students tried to provoke him, he ignored them. When someone mocked his quietness, he just smiled. And though he didn't realize it yet, the students had started respecting him more, not less. 1. Friday, after a long session, Mr. Harris told him, Tomorrow, you'll face me again. But this time, it won't be for the crowd. It will be for you. Ethan nodded, feeling both nervous and ready. He didn't want to win. He just wanted to show he had learned. Saturday morning came, and the gym was empty, except for Ethan and Mr. Harris. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, painting golden rectangles on the polished floor. There were no crowds this time, no phones ready to record. Just the sound of sneakers on wood and the quiet hum of the lights. Ethan stood ready, but this time his stance was different. His feet were grounded, his breathing slow and steady, his eyes calm. Mr. Harris noticed, giving the faintest nod of approval. Begin when you're ready, he said. Ethan didn't rush forward like before. Instead, he circled slowly, watching every movement. When he stepped in with a strike, it wasn't wild, it was controlled. Mr. Harris blocked it with ease, but there was a small spark of respect in his eyes. For the next few minutes, they moved across the gym in a quiet dance of attacks and counters. Ethan didn't land a single clean hit, but he also didn't make the reckless mistakes he had in their first fight when the session ended. Ethan was breathing heavily, sweat dripping down his face, but instead of frustration, he felt. Proud Mr. Harris clapped him once on the shoulder. "Better," he said simply. Much better. By Monday, word had spread that Ethan had been training with the janitor. Students whispered about it in the halls, some doubting, others curious. But when they saw the way Ethan carried himself now, calmer, quieter, they knew something had changed. The boy who once sought attention now walked with quiet confidence. He didn't boast anymore, and when someone tried to provoke him, he only smiled and walked away. One afternoon, a group of younger students approached him in the cafeteria. "Is it true?" One of them asked, "Did the janitor teach you how to fight?" Ethan thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No. He taught me how not to fight." The words confused them at first, but the more they thought about it, the more it made sense. The respect for Mr. Harris grew quietly but steadily. Students began greeting him in the hallways. Teachers spoke to him with a little more warmth. Even the principal started noticing. One day, Mr. Coleman, the PA teacher, approached Mr. Harris during a break. "You ever think about running a self-defense class here?" he asked. Mr. Harris gave a small smile. "I'm fine where I am," but the idea lingered in the air. Ethan, meanwhile, continued training after school. Sometimes the sessions were physical. Other times, they were just conversations. Mr. Harris told stories, not of his victories, but of his mistakes. Stories about soldiers who lost because they underestimated their opponents. Stories about battles where the smartest move was to walk away. Ethan listened closely, storing each lesson in his mind. Weeks passed, and one day, something unexpected happened. A new student, bigger than most, started picking on the smaller kids. Ethan saw it happen in the hallway. The old him would have stepped in with a showy display, ready to embarrass the bully. But now, he walked up calmly, looked the boy in the eyes, and simply said, "You don't need to do this." The bully hesitated, confused by the lack of aggression. Something in Ethan's steady gaze made him back down. Word of that incident reached Mr. Harris. That evening in the gym, he didn't make Ethan train. Instead, he handed him a bottle of water and said, "That was your best move yet?" Ethan smiled, knowing the compliment meant more than any victory in the ring. By now, the fight that had once been the highlight of the school gossip was no longer about humiliation. It had turned into a story of respect, discipline, and change. Ethan's friends noticed he was different, and when they asked why, he always gave the same answer. "Because a janitor taught me the meaning of strength." But the biggest change was still to come. The school board was planning an event for the end of the year, a showcase where students could demonstrate their skills. And this time, Ethan wasn't thinking about winning. He was thinking about honoring the man who had taught him more than any tournament ever could. The day of the school's showcase arrived. The gym was decorated with banners. The bleachers packed with students, parents, and teachers. There was music playing, the smell of popcorn in the air, and a buzz of excitement that filled every corner. Different performances were lined up: dance groups, music bands, and sports demonstrations. Ethan was on the list too, but unlike the others, he wasn't there to show off. Backstage, he stood in his black training uniform, adjusting his belt with steady hands. This time, there was no nervous energy. No ego, no need to prove anything. He had only one goal: to honor the man who had changed him. Mr. Harris was somewhere in the back of the gym, setting up chairs for parents, just like any other day. He had no idea what Ethan was about to do when Ethan's name was called. The crowd clapped politely. He stepped onto the mat in the center of the gym, bowed, and picked up the microphone. "Before I start," Ethan said, his voice carrying through the speakers, "I need to tell you about someone." The room quieted, curious. "A few months ago, I thought I was the strongest fighter in this school, he continued. I thought. Winning fights made me better than others. He paused, scanning the crowd. Then, I challenged someone I thought I could easily beat. Students started whispering. They knew who he meant. That person was our school janitor. Mr. Harris, Ethan said. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the bleachers in front of everyone. I tried to humiliate him, but instead he taught me a lesson I'll never forget. He turned and pointed to the back of the gym. Mr. Harris, will you please come here? At first, Mr. Harris didn't move, thinking it was some kind of mistake. But when the crowd started cheering, he reluctantly put down his mop and walked toward the mat. He looked uncomfortable, glancing around as phones came up to record. When he reached Ethan, the boy bowed deeply. Sir, you taught me that strength is not about hurting others. It's about control, patience, and respect, Ethan said. You changed me, and today I want everyone here to know who my teacher really is. The crowd erupted into applause. Some stood, clapping louder. Others whistled in support. Mr. Harris looked down, clearly moved, though he tried to hide it. Ethan stepped back and gestured for him to stand in the center. I asked him to join me today for a short demonstration. Ethan explained, not to fight, but to show what real martial arts is about. What followed wasn't a flashy display of power. It was a slow, precise set of movements, blocks, counters. Footwork, each one showing control and balance. Mr. Harris moved with the same quiet grace he had in their first match, while Ethan mirrored him with new skill and discipline. When they finished, there was no winner or loser. There was only respect. The crowd gave them a standing ovation. Parents whispered to their children, teachers smiled proudly, and for the first time, Mr. Harris allowed himself a small bow in return. Ethan handed the microphone to him. Mr. Harris hesitated, then said simply, "Strength is not in the fist. It's in the heart." Those words drew another wave of applause after the showcase. Students gathered around Mr. Harris, asking questions, wanting to learn. The principal approached and said, "Mr. Harris, if you're willing, I'd like to make your self-defense training an official program here." The janitor gave a humble smile. "We'll see," he replied. Though everyone could tell he was considering it, from that day forward, the way people saw Mr. Harris changed. He was no longer just the man who cleaned the halls. He was a mentor, a protector, and a quiet example of dignity. Ethan continued training with him, not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted to grow. And in time, others joined too. The gym that had once been the place of their first confrontation became the space where lessons of discipline and respect were passed down. As for Ethan, he never forgot that first day in the cafeteria when he made the mistake of underestimating the janitor. It had started as a challenge meant to embarrass someone, but it became the moment that shaped the rest of his life. And whenever anyone asked him how he learned to fight so well, he always answered with the same words, "I didn't just learn to fight. I learned to be strong."